Hi, my name is Lainey Skelton. I'm the campus athletic coordinator at Fort Bend Clements High School. I am also the head softball coach. I've served as United States History team lead for several years before I moved to physical education this last school year. I decided to participate in the Empowering Future Leaders Capstone project to broaden my perspective on what it means to be an assistant principal in our district and the criteria that our district is looking for in principals. Last spring, I finished my principal certification program through Lamar University and passed my exam this last summer. After starting this program of empowering future leaders, I went and spoke to my principal about what he needed help with on my campus. I serve on several committees that help with this already, but he really wanted me to gather information on a new system we call iLunch. iLunch is where we have one single lunch on our campus for all 2,600 plus students. The purpose of iLunch is so that students can attend tutorials, rehearsals, practices, teachers can meet in their PLCs, clubs can meet, and all kinds of things. And all of the students have access to all of the teachers as well as tutorial times and so on and so forth. iLunch was working well. We had a few hiccups that needed to be worked out, and that was my job, was to tackle what it is we needed to help better iLunch on our campus. So our main issue was a handful of students were causing some discipline issues during iLunch because they weren't using their iLunch productively, but about 95% of our student population was using iLunch productively and really, really enjoyed it. So my job was to find a way to gather feedback that would be constructive to help tackle that issue, as well as some students and teachers feeling overwhelmed with the amount of duties that they had during iLunch. The first thing I did was create a feedback survey for our teachers to complete that would help gather constructive feedback as to issues, things they like, plus suggestions for how to solve some of these problems. What I did was I created the survey, and then the last thing I wanted to do was bombard our teachers with another email and another survey that they needed to fill out. So I came up with the idea that we would present this survey at professional development, give the teachers about 15 to 30 minutes to fill out the survey while I was walking around the commons, kind of helping and asking questions and making sure everybody was able to access the survey. We had the majority of our teachers fill it out, as well as other staff members, and I gathered some really constructive feedback, which I will share with you now. Okay, so this is kind of what it looked like. These are the student surveys. Let me scroll up. So I gathered the data, and based on your observations, how students benefit from iLunch. There were several answers, and then I categorized some of the answers between gains and losses, positives and negative responses with certain things. How has it affected our school's culture? How are you utilizing iLunch as a teacher? Things like that. There's one down here that suggested improvements, so that was really great. One overwhelming improvement that we came up with was a detention hall to tackle the issue of the kids that are causing discipline issues. So if you are a child who has having some trouble staying in line during iLunch, we created a detention hall. So what we did is we modified our schedule when we came back to iLunch, where we only had iLunch from Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays we had a 3-lunch 30-minute system. Now each teacher has a duty for 30 minutes a week during iLunch. So the teachers who are assigned A and B lunch duty, or A and B duty times for Friday, had then been sprinkled into problem areas on the campus where we felt like we needed more teacher support to monitor students. We also reworked the schedule a little bit and put some of our most authoritative teachers to monitor detention hall. So during lunch, there would be students would have to go to detention for the entire lunch period. They could not be on their phones. All they could do is eat in silence and do paper-based homework. So they could not access any kind of technology. 2 teachers were assigned to detention hall. That way both could monitor and make sure that the students are doing what they were supposed to be doing. And everything seemed to be working really well. And then we rolled up into spring break, and now we're in quarantine. So that's kind of where we left off with iLunch. Um, I had also put out a student feedback survey. Their feedback was a little bit more just multiple choice questions because students' attention span I didn't think would sit there and put together constructive written feedback. So I will share that with you. So I scrolled down. We also did a gains and losses activity with our student council members. And so this is some of the feedback from that. But it was really similar. So the student feedback form looks a little different. It was mostly multiple choice. So how have you benefited from iLunch? How has iLunch affected our school's culture? On average, how have you used iLunch productively? How many times per week are you able to decompress, etc.? How many times are you bombarded with club meetings? One issue after talking to some students informally was that some students would find themselves going to a club meeting first half and then tutorial second half and then not finding time to eat their lunch. So that was an issue that had been presented to me. So the other thing that we decided to do when we met with the iLunch committee that Mr. Yaffe and I put together is that we wanted to make a plan for, when certain subjects were hosting their tutorials, when clubs were hosting their meetings, and urge students to make sure that they are well-rounded, but they're also taking care of themselves. And iLunch is meant to be a positive thing on our campus as opposed to an extra stressor. I think learning lessons in this whole process would be to somehow categorize the information a little easier in the survey that I provided to the teachers because it was really time consuming having to go through every response. So I guess formulating an algorithm that could help me kind of categorize those things a little easier. What would I do differently? I don't really think there's anything I would do differently. I just feel that before launching something big on a campus such as this, it would be good to gather this feedback from the very beginning and then reanalyze it towards the end and decide how you want to tackle such a big project. Overall, I do believe that iLunch is a positive thing on our campus. Teachers also feel that way. There was very little negative responses. The only responses were all with discipline and then kids feeling overwhelmed and our campus not being able to sustain such a large amount of students spread out through the campus. But we were able to tackle most of those issues by sprinkling teachers around the campus to help monitor these problems. Everything was going really great, actually, right before spring break. And then had to stop our system. So I'm hoping that after quarantine, and if we're able to get back to school normally again, we'll be able to pick up iLunch because it really helped both teachers and students limit the amount that they are, obligated to come before and stay late after school. For instance, I spoke with several coaches on that end of things, like myself. I sponsor several clubs as well as coach, and having time to meet with your PLCs for several times a week, having time for club meetings where you don't have to get to school super early or stay super late or have anything conflict with practices or rehearsals. And kids were able to really enjoy more activities with less stress because of iLunch. The logistics of it were just still being worked out. I think everything was going great. And I would be really surprised if we didn't continue this when school resumes as normal. So overall, this experience was really interesting. I got to see some of the important things that a principal has to deal with on a campus. I also got to learn what it is our district is looking for in leadership and exercise my leadership abilities outside of athletics and outside of my PLC team lead role. Thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for dedicating your time to watching our videos and helping us grow as leaders in our campus. Thank you.